Hello everyone, it's Michaela Valletta, also known as the Renaissance Amazon. And right now I'm live on my IG page, which is at the_Renaissance_Amazon_81. And I'm going to save this video and repost it on my YouTube page, the Renaissance Amazon. So if you follow me on YouTube and not IG, make sure you do that and vice versa, okay? So I hope you're all doing well. Wow. Today, I want to talk about what is going on with Donald Trump, the Capitol riots, the terrorists. I want to talk about that. And for those of you who follow me, you know that I talk about a lot of different issues. I have activism in my background. From both of my parents, but also just growing up with that. And, I did a video a couple months ago about Donald Trump and whether or not he was endangering the country. For people who know me, you know that I'm a critical thinker, okay? And for those of you who don't know me, let me tell you. I'm into critical thinking, I'm into researching, I'm into facts, I'm into putting things into context, okay? And I don't believe that everybody deserves to be forgiven. I don't believe everybody deserves sympathy or empathy, okay? I do believe that there are evil people in the world, okay? And I do believe that in order for change to happen, it takes a lot of organization and a lot of consistent work over many years, many generations. Okay, so I understand that as well. So coming from a bloodline of activists and fighters, this is something that I understand, all right? And so there's always the good and the bad, okay? So there's already a lot of things that I wanted to talk about today with everything. But right before I was about to come on live, my dad called me. And, my dad, in my lifetime, was a journalist, not a reporter, but an op-ed journalist. He wrote op-ed columns for the New York Daily News twice a week in the 90s, and the Village Voice, and the Manchester Guardian of London. He'd written for Emerge magazine sometimes, the first issue of The Source. My dad wrote about world issues, black issues, but also world issues, political issues, the arts. So I know a lot of, the politics when it comes to the media, okay? That's another thing. There's so many things I want to talk about. Because there are some issues with the media, but the media is not all bad, There are, in my previous videos that I've done recently about coronavirus, there are things that I've spoken about in critique of the media, and I have more to say about that. But I'm not going to say that across the news, the media is all being controlled, or is all wrong, or all bad, or that there aren't really good and important things you can get from the news. Like with this, Capitol riot that, happened, all of the different previous FBI directors and, people who held very important positions with security, listening to them speak about what happened, listening to them, there's a lot to be learned and gained about just the seriousness of it all. And the fact that Mary Trump, Donald Trump's niece, who wrote a book about him, has been trying to warn people about how bad it was going to get with him. But there have been mental health experts from the beginning diagnosing Donald Trump with all kinds of serious mental issues. And anybody, I feel like, who has common sense and discernment could have seen that. Donald Trump has a record of a loser, okay? Everything that he has done in life has been a scam. He wins at scamming, okay? He comes from a scam artist family. That's the family way, all right? His grandfather, whatever's from Germany, they never cared about the United States. Him and his family, the opposite of patriotic, okay? Donald Trump's father told them never to join the military. His brother joined the military, was disowned by the family, okay? Very sick family. It was the family way to learn how to not pay taxes, okay? He was born with a spoon in his mouth. So the same way you see these white people in the airport crying and having a fit because they couldn't get on the airplane, okay? This white mom of one of the men who were arrested complaining that her son is not eating in jail because he can't get organic food. that extreme level of white privilege that Donald Trump said when he was running for office, he could shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue and he wouldn't even get in trouble and go to jail. He knows that he can get away with everything. And thus far, he has gotten away with everything. Even the nerve of anybody to say, oh, we shouldn't impeach him or we don't need it. Fuck that. Are you kidding me? All of the penalties that people have suffered for smoking a blunt, okay? People who've gone to jail in New Orleans for 15 years for having like 2 grams of weed on them, okay? All of these extreme punishments, all the people who've been locked up for years who weren't even guilty, okay? But you're gonna tell me that this dude, all the shit that he's done, okay? Like, when you wanna deal with facts, the facts are the Russians tapped into our last election. They're responsible for Donald Trump winning, and because most Americans don't pay attention to what the fuck is going on in the world and don't read, it's easy to brainwash a bunch of Americans, because honestly, I couldn't understand how people were saying back then, there's no difference between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton. What are you talking about? You may not love Hillary Clinton, but there's definitely a difference. There was definitely a difference between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. First of all, Hillary Clinton was the most qualified person to ever run for president. Donald Trump was the most unqualified person to ever run for president, okay? And there's no way that Hillary Clinton would have the nastiness. You know, Donald Trump, I can't understand how any black person was thinking that Donald Trump can have our best interests at heart. Do people not remember how he came at Colin Kaepernick and any of the athletes who wanted to stand up? Do people not remember that every single time a black man was killed, whether it be not just from the police, but just from other shit like Ahmaud Arbery, Donald Trump expressed no sorrow or empathy or denouncing anybody for being wrong? Do people forget about the housing development he had in New York that was extremely racist and documented as being so? There are people who worked around him that would talk about the racist shit that he would say. And do people forget how he treated Obama? Because Obama was a black man, and you just want to keep saying he wasn't born in America when there's definitely proof that he was. You know what I'm saying? And he did that because he was black. And there are people who were right next to Donald Trump who have said that, okay? And so all of these black actors, and people like Ice Cube who, you know, I did a video about Ice Cube with his whole contract with Black America, which I spoke about why I felt like that was foolish. And if you haven't seen it, you can go back and watch it, because I really analyzed that. And this is coming from the daughter of a union organizer. My mother has been a union organizer my entire life, okay? And very good at what she does. My dad was in the front lines of the civil rights movement. He was a part of the organization that strategically put together the Black Panther Party, which did not begin in Oakland. He was one of the founders of the first Afro-American Studies department in the country, of the first, okay? And I come from a freedom fighting family, okay, and organizers. And so I see and I know what that is. And I do my own activist work in my own way. And a lot of times I feel like I should be doing more. When it comes to this vaccine situation, I definitely feel compelled to do more, because I'm definitely against mandatory vaccinations. And I've done videos, I'll be doing more videos about that, but definitely check my other page, my other YouTube page, The Body Scientist 81, to stay up to date about what I'm speaking about with that. I am, and this is the complicated thing with politics, I am I'm not, you know, for the mandatory masks or vaccines, and this is backed by a lot of science, and like I said, I get into that in other videos. But even though I feel that way, I am not a supporter of Donald Trump, you know. I don't agree with everything that Joe Biden says and does, okay? But Joe Biden and Kamala Harris is definitely better than Donald Trump and Pence, okay? And when you have black people who say things like, oh, there's no difference between the Democrats and Republicans. No, okay? What we're seeing even right now with Republicans who won't denounce Donald Trump, who keep acting like there was election fraud when there's no evidence of any election fraud. But you know what there is evidence of? There's evidence of Donald Trump cheating in line, of him calling and trying to get people to cheat, of him cheating with everything he's done. Okay, he's not even as rich as he act like people think he is. He's not. Okay, and the fact that when his election, the Russians hacked into it. Okay, and there's pages and pages and pages of evidence of that. But there's no evidence there was an election fraud. Donald Trump tried to shut down the U.S. Post Office. Obama saved the U.S. Post Office. You know what? A lot of black people work for the U.S. Post Office. Donald Trump tried to overturn every single thing that Obama put into play. And right now, that's why he's, claiming Cuba some terrorist place or whatever, trying to starve Cuba. You know what? I've been to Cuba 5 times. You know what? Cuba is mostly black. I've been to Puerto Rico, okay? I've been to Colombia, and I haven't been to the Pacific coast of Colombia, but I've been to Cartagena and Medellin and Cali. And Colombia has a lot of black people because they're second in the slave trade after Brazil. But in Cuba, I went to Havana and I went to Santiago de Cuba. There's lots of black people. Cuba's mostly black. And when I say black, I mean my complexion and darker. And people who are literally the color black. Okay? In Puerto Rico, you see a lot of the mestizo-looking J-Lo, and they'll be like, oh, I'm Afro-Puerto Rican, and that they look like, no. In Cuba, it's black. You see all black salsa bands, okay? Black. Most of the white Cubans, they went to Florida. And most of them stay in Florida. You don't see a lot of them in California. You don't see a lot of them in New York or Philadelphia. They're mostly in Florida, and they're racist as hell, okay? And they are so obsessed with starving the country that they come from because Castro kicked their asses out, okay? And Cuba was a horrible place for black people before Castro, all right? And a lot of Afro-Cubans love him. And like with every leader, there's no leader on the planet that doesn't have negative and positive that you could say about them, right? But this being so dead set on starving Cuba, a very black country, full of very intelligent people, okay? Some of the most intelligent people. Cuba's a very safe place. You don't hear about Cuban gangs. They're not doing anything, like they're reading, playing beautiful music. I love Cuba, I mean, every place has its pros and its cons. But I'm just saying. And so I was listening to this interview. Okay, so first of all, what happened, right? Okay, so I'm from New York City. I currently live in Chicago. I spend a lot of time in DC, okay? DC is like one of my second homes, okay? I'm in DC all the time. I was supposed to be there for New Year's, actually. I was there for my birthday. I'm in DC a lot, okay? I have a lot of friends in DC. I've been going to DC all my life. So, me being from New York, okay, when 9/11 happened, I was in college at the University of Delaware, where Joe Biden went. And he actually spoke at my college graduation, as a matter of fact, 2003. So, when I would be in DC, after 9/11 happened, one thing I noticed was that when I would be in DC, like in New York, ever since 9/11 happened, it's been high security. You be in the train, you see cops and military people with machine guns or whatever. I don't know about, big old guns or whatever. When you go in Penn Station or Grand Central Station in New York City, you see 3 cops over here, 3 military, 4 cops, 2 military, 5 cops, 3 military, okay, and full out gear in New York City. And I've always been amazed that nothing has happened since 9/11, okay? Obviously, the NYPD, the powers that be who are watching over New York are paying attention because millions of people, especially pre-COVID, millions of people were coming in and out of New York City every single day. Our Penn Station and our Grand Central Station, millions of people coming in and out of that. And then it's crazy because after going to London was like a whole other level. It was like New York on steroids. They had mini stations like that, but even bigger. And I'm like, oh my God. I think if I wasn't from New York, I would have cried in London with that. But in the U.S., no other city has that volume of what New York has of people coming in You know what I'm saying? So it's so easy. Sorry, that's my speaker. It's so easy for something to happen, but I feel like they pay attention in New York, and I feel like if you pull out a gun on Times Square and you thinking about to shoot up something, the NYPD will shoot you first. They really pay attention. Okay. Now in DC, I always notice like when I be in Union Station, which is where their train station, their main train station. I would always see like two cops like in the whole station, and I always think, okay. And then when you ride around like the embassies, like the different buildings, like you don't see the police presence that you see in New York. And I remember, saying like it did. And I remember when Obama was president, people kept jumping over the fence, and they'd just be over there for 20 minutes. So I'm like, how could you jump over the fence of the White House and just be there chilling for 20 minutes? Like there's no attack dog, you didn't get shot. Like I don't understand that. And DC always looked very vulnerable to me, like it wasn't guarded like New York is, even though DC has 30 different kinds of police and the military. And I remember, and when I was in college, DC and Baltimore were the murder capitals, okay? And I remember asking a DC friend of mine, how could that be? How could you have 32 different kinds of police and the CIA and the FBI and the military, and it was so bad in this little city? And they told me because all of that in DC is very compartmentalized, okay? So they all have their jurisdiction and they don't cross over. So the federal police, I guess, weren't concerned with, what was going on in the street in DC or whatever. I don't know. It's very compartmentalized. I just know that it didn't make sense to me. And I felt like DC never seemed like it was heavily guarded enough. Now, this situation at the Capitol building, I definitely believe that there was some inside help. You know what I'm saying? I think the fact that this happened, it shows a lot. It shows a lot. It shows a lot to a lot of people. To the black people who complain about what the police do to us. The black people who complain and talk about white supremacy. I know black people who talk about white supremacy all the time and the problem with white supremacy. And you're supposed to be on some pro-black shit, but then you're talking about Donald Trump as if that's a good option. How could that be? How could that be? 2 plus 3 doesn't equal 4. So, how could that be? You know what I'm saying? I don't understand that. And then say, the black people who are like, Donald Trump has done more for black people than anybody else, and, which is also not true. Okay? Again, people don't know how to fact check and critically think and just pay attention and observe the obvious. But there was something I was about to say. Darn it. I just lost my train. There's so many things in my mind that I want to say, and I just lost my train of thought of what I was saying. Yes, I know. So, Donald Trump has defended the police and, we love the police, his followers, Blue Lives Matter, yada, 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 but then they killed a cop. And Donald Trump hasn't said anything about that. And that cop was one of his followers. Okay? There was lots of law enforcement in that group. So to the black, now I was going to say, to the black people who's supposed to be so pro-black and complaining about the police do to us and talking about white supremacy, but then you thought that Donald Trump was a good option, or there's no difference between Joe Biden and Donald Trump. Like, I don't love Joe Biden, but he's definitely better than Donald Trump, okay? So anyhow, moving forward, there was tons of law enforcement in that crowd. And ex-military in that crowd. So what does that tell you? What does that tell us? Something that a lot of black people already knew. There's a lot of white racists in the police forces across the country. And that riot showed that. Now you have police forces all over the country investigating their own people. Okay? Then you're hearing about Secret Service agents cheering on the rioters. Okay? The Capitol building is highly complex. People can't just find those offices. They targeted certain offices, and certain offices that are heavily guarded and hard to find. There was a reporter who was inside the building when it happened, and she talked about how when she came in, she had heard about what was happening at the Capitol building, so she goes over. She came in on one side of the Capitol building. She said the Capitol police didn't know what she was talking about. When she asked them about it, they didn't know what she was talking about. She goes in the building, goes to the other side of the building, and there she sees through the window all the rioters outside, okay? And she watched them. She said that first she saw a couple of lines of police guarding And then all of a sudden they disappeared. And she sees them trying to break them. She's up in this balcony looking at them, and she said she felt safe because she knew the building and she knew where she could go to be secured. And she watches them, breaking stuff down. She watched this happen. At a time that she felt like, let me go, okay, to this more secured area. She said this area was a place where there's always police. There's always Capitol Police where she has to show credentials. And when she went there, they weren't there. They weren't there. She said there were no police anywhere. Okay? That's a problem. That sounds like some inside help, some inside job, and then this whole level, this chain of command with all these different police in DC and who they need authorization from, like, it was crazy to me. And the way I've always felt about DC was just a lot of different things. I've never felt like DC could handle an emergency, okay? Anybody who went to Barack Obama's first inauguration, anybody from New York that were complaining that, DC, the way that they didn't have enough trains running for the amount of people that was coming to the city, that was going like once an hour, okay? They didn't have any food, anywhere to eat or use the bathroom. All the businesses were closed. Like in New York, businesses would have been open because they know you could make mad money that day. You know what I'm saying? If you got your money, you would be open. People could go in and get warm, get some food, use a bathroom. Like, there was nothing like that. And I remember people I knew from New York kept saying DC doesn't know how to deal with a crowd. Every time it snows in DC, okay, it'll get a little bit of snow. New York, Chicago, don't miss a beat. Huge cities, okay? DC, little itty bitty city, will be shut down. In Maryland, the surrounding suburbs, kids aren't going to school for like a month because of snow. I'm like, what takes so long to shovel the snow in this small little area? Like, why? There's a lot of incompetencies. I swear I don't feel like in New York people would be able to bust into United Nations like that and not get shut down. But still, I do feel like there is some inside stuff going on, and that's very dangerous. These people had bombs. They had zip ties, all kinds of weapons. They were attacking journalists. And so, again, that's why I can't allow people to completely insult journalists, because journalists do very important work. There are tainted journalists, okay? And there are issues with journalism and how the media might try to spin and control certain things. But that doesn't mean everything in the media is bullshit. And that doesn't mean that the job of journalists is not very important. We have to have our own discernment, though, okay, with certain things. Now, there were a lot of journalists who were attacked. Like, my dad's a journalist, my twin brother's a journalist. Like, I remember when I was at my brother's graduation, there was I think she was Filipino, this journalist, I wish I remember her name. She told amazing stories of covering stories in places, and things in the Philippines where there was extreme tension. And it was very dangerous. Okay, so trying to get in there and get the story can be very dangerous for your life. Okay? Then, I don't know if you heard Arnold Schwarzenegger's speech, where Arnold Schwarzenegger talks about, being from Austria and when he was born, and, how he's seen a sick dictator take over and people fall for the lies. And Donald Trump is like a spawn of that shit, okay? Like, I will never understand. I just don't have a lot of patience for sheer ignorance. So I would never understand how black people could think, or poor white people, but, could think that Donald Trump has their best interests at heart. What he showed, how he told his his followers, that he would be there. And they go because of him, and he's not even there. He's protected. Him and his family, they're not going to get hurt. And he feels like, oh, I can do this and I'm not going to get in trouble. And he may not. He has all these lawsuits. Everybody wants him. But I wouldn't be surprised if he scathed through everything, because he just seems to know how to scam and how to just get away with shit. Okay? That's his superpower. Now, I hope something eventually catches up to him. But I wouldn't be surprised. I'm not going to hold my breath if it doesn't. Also, there's so many conversations, like, for black people, we've been known that there's a big difference in how we're treated by the police and how they're treated by the police. We've been known that. And we've known that white supremacist groups are the greatest terrorist threat to the United States. We've known that too. That more so than Muslims or whatever. We've known that. That's not new information for us. But for the white people who tried to argue that, okay? Like, I know a white boy in DC who was a client of mine, an attorney, who gets on my fucking nerves with the dumb shit I see him saying. Every time there's some blatantly racist shit, he's always trying to argue that it's not. He's always trying to argue that he doesn't have privilege as a white male, and that white male privilege doesn't exist. At this point, if you try to argue that, and when you have this situation, and we look at footage from Black Lives Matter protests, okay, where people were actually, peacefully protesting about people being murdered, and there being no punishment, and you're going to compare that to this, and how they just, in what country in the world can you just bust into government buildings and do that? You would have got shot down, okay? And to me, it made our country look weak. It makes our country look weak. It makes DC look weak, And it opens the whole world. The whole world is watching, seeing America's vulnerabilities. That opens us up to attacks externally as well, internally and externally. So even though this is not new information for us, this is opening the eyes of a lot of people who didn't realize that white supremacists were such a big threat. Now we're damn near on the brink of a civil war dealing with these people. And a lot of people, I feel like this year is going to be crazier than last year. I feel like there's going to be a lot of unnecessary deaths. There's already been a lot of unnecessary deaths under Trump's watch and his protests and what happened in Charlottesville and yada, yada, yada. And there's probably going to be more of that this year because of the shit that he's stirring up. Okay? These people that broke into the Capitol building look so crazy. Any interview you see with them talking, they look absolutely like they've been drinking gasoline their entire life. Like they're retarded in the head, okay? They look possessed by the devil if you believe in that, okay? They look like pure evil. And then to not be able to fly and for them to be crying and saying things like, oh, you treat me like a black man or, just can't believe it. Like they just can't fathom ever getting in trouble by the police. So it's putting this display of white supremacy on steroids for anybody who wanted to try to argue that that wasn't such a thing. For anybody who wanted to try to argue that we've had a black president, racism doesn't exist anymore. And that's to the black people who say that and the white people. This is pure facts and evidence in front of you that can't be debated. And then Donald Trump comes out today and he still doesn't condemn anything. He's still comparing this to what happened, certain Black Lives Matter protests this summer. Sickening. So, to the black people, it's such and then Ice Cube, I had to talk about that. With him, I said he's not a true organizer. You can have the best interests of people at heart, but if you're not smart enough to be quiet and listen to and work with those who are more experienced and who've been doing the work, if you're not smart enough to be doing that, you get no respect. Because there are true organizers out here who've been doing organizing work for years. Shit is not as simple as, oh, I wrote a contract that I want these things and the president signs this contract and now I get these things. No, dummy. It's about laws that have to be passed. All these things in your contract that if they were going to be implemented require lots of laws to change or be passed on local and federal levels in order to allocate funds and resources to bring these things into fruition. That doesn't happen overnight. That doesn't happen with two people. One person presenting it, another person signing something. No, it doesn't. Okay, wait, hold on a second. Wait. Hold on. Sorry. I forgot what I was saying. Do I think that black people should indulge in politics in a country that's obviously not for us? That doesn't make any sense to me. If you live here, then you should. Are you going to move somewhere else? And if you're going to move somewhere else, then try to go get involved with wherever you're going to move to. But if they allow you, because a lot of countries don't allow outside people to get involved in their politics. But that's a silly question to me. To me, I can't stand people that sit around and talk and don't do anything. There are a lot of people who've never done any kind of organizing, never been involved in any of that. All they do is sit around on the internet and talk about how shit doesn't work and this doesn't work and nothing's changed and blah, 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 blah. To say nothing's changed is an insult to people who are doing the work, because a lot of things change. And sometimes things change for the better, and sometimes they change back, because you get assholes like Donald Trump who get into office who try to take things back. Donald Trump kept saying, let's make America great again. Kanye's dumbass wore that hat across his Kanye went on TV, like damn near sucking Donald Trump's dick, like, oh, I wish you were my father, making a fool out of himself, okay? And then Kanye West saying dumb things like slavery was a choice, and there's certain black people like, oh, yeah, he's kind of right. No, okay? No, absolutely not. Because what does make America great again mean? Donald Trump has people with Confederate flags. People who to them make America great again means let's go back to slavery. Okay? Let's go back to, white supremacists and white supremacy reigning, just having the full control of the land. That's what that means. So how can you as a black person wear that? So this happening, I feel like, let me just get to the point, is that, because I also, there's a white client that I have in New York. He's Jewish, and he is a surgeon, right? And this summer, he listens to hip hop and everything. This summer, when a lot of the Black Lives Matter stuff was happening, he told me, he felt embarrassed. He was like, I had no idea that there was this kind of injustice against black people in this country. And he told me he felt shame that he didn't realize that, he didn't know that. And I'm thinking to myself, damn, like even listening to hip hop, you never realize, but a lot of this woke him up. And he cared, and he felt bad, and he was like, and so in this summer, we saw a lot of white people and people that were not black at Black Lives Matter protests. A lot of the people that the police fucked up this summer were white people or non-black people. Okay, there were black people that got messed up too, but I'm saying the police weren't just aggressive with black people. There were a lot of white people on the front lines, as they should be, right? And so white allies are also important, okay? And that's something that's important. And there are white allies in the civil rights movement. There are certain black people who feel like they don't need white allies. No, you do. I remember there was a white woman that I know in Chicago. She's from St. Louis, and I've known her for years. And a couple of years ago, I was doing a workshop in Milwaukee. And a couple of years ago, I was doing a workshop in Milwaukee, and it was all white women. I was the only black woman, okay? Everybody else is white. And it was about my nani eggs and the yoni eggs, right? But this white woman I know from St. Louis, but lives in Chicago, she took the opportunity to call out the white women in the room and shame them for voting for Donald Trump. And she shamed them for voting for somebody else that was in office in Wisconsin, I think, or something, right? And she went off on them, and I felt like, oh wow, I felt like this is awkward. Like this one white woman is shaming these other white women, and I'm just sitting here like, But I respect white people like that. Those are white people that I grew up with and I fuck with. Now, the fact of the matter is that I was listening to an interview that Trevor Noah did with these two people that wrote this book called Out of Hatred, okay? These white boys wrote this book called Out of Hatred. They grew up as white supremacists. One of them, or white nationalists, one of them started this website when he was 10 years old. There was like a white nationalist website. That website got the most traffic when Donald Trump became president. It went through the roof. And they were talking about the importance of other white people calling out white racists on their bullshit. The importance of how another white voice is what stops the bullshit and silences them, and how important that was, And I feel, and he talks about, Donald Trump supporters and what they think, and how there are a lot of white people who do believe that they're discriminated against more than black people. This is true. I've known white people like this. I remember I lost a white client in 2008 when Obama became president the first time. It was the day after when black people were happy, And this white client of mine said, black people are being racist because they're happy because Obama. And I'm like, how's that racist? Because black people are happy that Obama won the presidency. How's that racist? How's a white boy going to tell me that? You know what I'm saying? I can't. You know what I'm saying? I can't. And so sometimes I try not to discuss politics with clients, because if you say ignorant shit like that, like, I can't fuck with you. Not as a client, I just can't. And sometimes I'd rather not do that because who's trying to lose money? But at the same time, I don't want to work with you if I know you're sitting there thinking something like that. You know what I'm saying? And so, another thing with Donald Trump, if you think he cares about black people, all the votes that he tried to disenfranchise, that he tried to say didn't count, were places that had a whole bunch of black people. Milwaukee, Detroit, Atlanta, Philly. You know what I'm saying? You have a problem. You wanna not count the votes of where it's mostly black people. And black people, Native Americans, Mexicans, well, you could say Hispanics, but Hispanic could be different things, because it's not the Cuban Hispanics. It's not the Cuban Hispanics in Florida, okay? But there are a lot of Hispanics in other places. There might be Mexican, Puerto Rican. You have Native Americans, black people. They're all together. Our vote is enough to change certain things, And I feel like all this that's happened in Georgia, all this is happening, also shows how important it is to vote as well. And just flood the system. Like, even when you think, oh, well, my state is good, I don't need to vote. Flood the system. Flood the system with so many votes that nobody can deny that you won. Flood the system, okay? Doing nothing. I can't stand people, oh, well, Joe Biden is not the key to, black people getting wealthy. Like, okay, there's so much work you have to do. It's not going to be ever one person that's going to be the key to ending all of your problems. It's not ever going to be one person. And then you have to pay attention. Like, this all inspires me to pay attention to local politics more, all of that. But all those different levels, paying attention, pressing your politicians, which I feel like is a lot of work I want to do around this vaccine awareness stuff, because there's a lot of issues with it, and I'm really against mandatory vaccines. So all I can do is do my best to educate, contact, elected officials, try my best to, it's better than sitting there and doing nothing. You know what I'm saying? Too many people doing nothing and complaining. I'm trying to think, so these white boys wrote this book, Out of Hatred. There's an interview with Trevor Noah. I'll post it below on my YouTube channel. And so I know when I'm done with this, I'm going to think of things that I meant to say that I didn't say. Unfortunately, we needed Trump to rip the Band-Aid off this wound of racism. What we do next is what matters. I agree. I agree. Because sometimes people say, oh, this is not America. Yes, it is America. To a lot of black people we've known, a lot of us and our parents, my dad grew up in the segregated South. You know what I'm saying? My grandmother was born and raised her kids in the segregated South. That was ugly. That wasn't that long ago. You know what I'm saying? It really wasn't that long ago. And for a lot of us, people who were born in the 70s, people who were born in the 80s, that was just a few years before you were born. You know what I'm saying? It really wasn't that long. So there's a lot of people right now who are living who then seen some black men hang from some trees, participated in that. Okay? A lot of people, or their parents. Okay? So they're still here. So we can't, and be surprised and say this is not America. It is. And this is the parts of America that a lot of people have wanted to deny is still there. There are a lot of people who have wanted to say, oh, it's in the past. There's no racism anymore. And we're seeing the ugliness, like a detox right now. It's like a detox right now. Okay? Yeah, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, you got to ask yourself, what are you doing to make a change? I personally am not the one to run from my country. The only way that could possibly happen is if, some mandatory vaccine situation happened, but I really don't want to leave the United States. I travel a lot. I have no intention on moving to another country. I care about the land that I descend from, that I was born and bred on, that my ancestors have been on for as far back as I can trace. And you can't change where you're from if you're not there. Okay? So my fighting spirit is not one to run to another country. So that's not my plan. Okay. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I need to say before I end this video, because there's so many things. Like, first of all, Colin Powell was talking about the Capitol Police. Like, why did they think that, why did they think that it was okay? Why do the Capitol Police believe that they have guns? Like, if you have people running into the Capitol building and you're not shooting, like, you know what I'm saying? And that's why I feel like there's inside stuff done. And this white congressman from Ohio who was like, he wanted to know why more people weren't shot. Why? Like, this is so serious. Like, what other country could you just run up, and let people not get shot down? It's just crazy. And so there are a lot of people that have been telling people Trump is dangerous for the country. He's a dangerous man. He has mental issues. He's petty and immature. So every time people say, oh, he should step down, like, we know he's not going to step down. Donald Trump is never going to admit defeat in any kind of way. And he will throw anybody under the bus. All his followers that went in there and busted in, now they in trouble. He don't care. He don't care that a cop died, who actually was one of his supporters. He only cares about what affects him. Okay? Sick man. But so I feel like I said what I needed to say. I have to run and go do some things. Every time I do a video, I'm like, after I'm done, I remember a bunch of things that I meant to say, that I forgot to say. So if that happens, I'll write it below on my YouTube. Maybe I'll do another video after, who knows what the hell's gonna happen in the next week. Okay? But absolute insanity. And I'm gonna say it again. If you fuck with Trump, and especially if you're a black person, I absolutely don't respect that, okay? And don't tell me, oh, he made some more money for you. He made some more money. Some people claim that they made more money under Trump. Okay. So is your number one principle is money? Like, for me, I care about money. But for me, it's not money over, it's not money over, being righteous to people. Like, it's not that serious. I don't want money so bad that I want to do horrible things to other people or have blood on my hands in that kind of way. You know what I'm saying? So even if I can make more money under Donald Trump, all the other asshole things he does and what he stands for and what he's about, there's no way I could support that. Just like I am not with the mask and the vaccines, but I know that the bad with him far outweighs that. So it's like all I can do is just try to educate the Biden administration about the facts. You know what I'm saying? But the level of disrespect and having other countries hating us and like everything he's done, he's been a disregard and disrespect on so many levels. Like, man, the hell with him. So I'm gonna end this here. I think I said everything that I needed to say. Let's see, what happens in this next week or so. So if you want, feel free to check out my other videos on this topic. I'll post it below my YouTube. If you're on my YouTube and you don't follow me on IG, be sure to follow me at the_Renaissance_Amazon_81. And if you're on IG and you don't follow me on YouTube, be sure to follow me at the Renaissance Amazon. Okay? All right, people. Have a good day and take care. Bye.